So in order to set the cameras correctly, there is a photo of John, Paul, Vince, and Ringo.
Boy, that just rolls off
on
the
stage.
tongue, doesn't it?
Look at that.
John, Paul, Vince, and Ringo.
I
Wow.
mean, there is,
Wow.
and for any of us to do this, we'd have to do it in Photoshop. But for Vince, it's just one of the cool moments in his awesome life. Vince Calandra in New York City. Welcome to the Bob Rivers Show. How are you?
Hi. Good morning. Listen, I must compliment you guys. Of all the interviews, this is a well-produced segment. You guys set it up beautifully. Believe me.
Oh, yeah. You talked to a bunch of radio guys who have no idea what's going on, right?
Oh, come on. Listen, it's really terrific. It's,
he knows. This guy knows.
Thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.
Well, actually, we were going to talk to someone else. You're just standing in for that person.
Oh, very good.
We're going to have someone else come in here.
Okay, levels are good. Levels are good.
All right, thank you, Vince. We'll bring in the real guy now. No, I'm kidding. So Vince, tell me, look, you've had a long, full life as a television producer. So here comes along the 50th anniversary, and that picture is so incredible that we all put ourselves in your shoes for a moment. Imagine standing there and having that moment.
Oh, well, it was, listen, it's hard to explain. They also found another picture, which will be on the special on Sunday, of me actually looking like a human being with the wig off, and a great two-shot of Paul and I talking, looking like we've been buddies for the last 5 years. And that, it's a classic. They found it. I told them that the picture existed, and they said they couldn't find it, but somebody found it. It's a classic.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad to
jumping up and down. I mean, it just that's my grandfather.
Neat.
So.
I'm kind of glad to hear that because actually I didn't know that was a wig when I saw the picture. And it kind of makes you look like a Beatles stalker, like you were hanging out there.
I've got a matching suit,
Beatle
boots.
Looking guy. Hey, in the 50s, I was one of the top models in New York working before I became a television person. Believe me. So that's a great line. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
So
find that.
yeah. So now, because if it was you, like it would be like, who locked George in a closet somewhere? And I'm ready.
Well, get a couple of my mafia uncles or something.
That's right. That maybe you set the whole thing up. Hey, Joe has a question. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, it was 50 years ago today. They landed for the first time, and it would be 50 years ago tomorrow when you did this shoot. These guys had not been to America, and they were really kind of keeping them from people. I mean, they were locked in hotel rooms. They really didn't get a chance to talk to too many people. You were probably one of the few people that they got to quiz about America. Did they ask you any questions?
Yeah. Well, you guys, listen, I got to tell you guys, man, you guys really did your homework. You're making it easy. Wow.
Oh, well, that's our job.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah, I could answer that. I could answer the question about George not showing up to the rehearsal because of he had a temperature of 102, and they wouldn't let him leave the hotel. And getting to know them, I basically and all this will blow your mind, and then now you guys will really appreciate me. I was the only one on the Sullivan staff that was worked all for their show, all 4 appearances. But I also was the assistant to the producer for that wonderful August night called the Beatles at Shea Stadium.
Wow.
So I was like the point guy because my job as a production assistant was to give them the rehearsal calls, make sure the props were there, all that, immigration, green card. But God was looking down on me because that Saturday, usually when we rehearsed, I wore like a casual, like a sweater and a pair of jeans or slacks. But I was going to the theater that night to give the stage manager of the cast of Oliver with Georgia Brown and Davy Jones their contracts and give the wardrobe people their calls. So my wife was coming in from the island to meet me for dinner, and being a class New York, you go to the theater, you dressed, and of course that was the Ed Sullivan, uniform.
So you were actually you had dressed up in a suit, much like the Beatles wore, for another event that night that you were going to in the theater, and
Right, exactly.
they're
Yeah,
looking
well,
around
you
and they
know,
see you, and they put a mop top wig on you, and you're good to go.
and I happen to be wearing a dark suit with a shirt and tie. I look just like them. I mean, that's what they basically were wearing, dark suits. And so when Neil took off to go back to the hotel, because what happened was his daughter Louise, who's a nurse, believe it or not, was trying to get up to the 12th floor where they had the 10 bedroom suite. And the policeman stopped her, and she said, "Well, I'm George's sister." And they said, "Yeah, you and about 1,000 other people."
They didn't believe she was his sister. That's funny.
I'd like.
To answer your great question of interacting with them. The first thing Paul said to me when I got on stage, and I re-met them and said hello and everything, and was they always talked about their whole ambition was once they did the Ed Sullivan Show, they were on their way, and then John said to me something about how long have you been? Don't forget, I was 28, 29. They were like 21, 23. So
you're an older brother.
The average, the range was within their realm. I was really one of the youngest guys on the staff at that point. And John said to me, he said, "How long have you been with the show?" And I said, "Well, I've been with the show since '57." I said, "But I wasn't, full time. I was really basically a cue card boy and a gopher. That's how I really started with them." And he said, "Was this the stage that Buddy Holly performed?" And I said, "Yeah. In fact, I said I held cue cards for them, believe it or not." I said, "And exactly where you're standing, John, is exactly where the guys performed." And he had an expression on his face that was like, "Oh, my God, this is unbelievable."
How about that? You got to experience the Beatles being excited to become stars, realizing that they were, in other words, you saw them when they were wannabes, Beatles, and you got to watch John realize that he got to stand somewhere Buddy Holly got to stand. So that's a cool moment not many people had. Now,
and everything was a cool moment. Even like backstage when John, he had that that accent and everything, and he kept on asking me for change for the Coke machine, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. He said, "Coke, man, love Coca-Cola." So then I realized he was looking for some nickels because there was a Coke machine on the 5th floor of the studio, and then he kept on going up there getting Coca-Colas.
Funniest thing is that when Mick Jagger 4 years later asked you for Coke, it was a completely
when Mick
different
was
thing.
asking for Coke, he was asking for Coke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I can't tell you what Mick Jagger said to me the night of the Ed Sullivan Show when he did the show. That the FCC we would be off the air.
Oh, he was asking for women, wasn't he?
Uh-huh.
No, he changed the lyrics on that song. And
Oh, yes.
he wasn't
That's
too
right.
happy about it.
No, that's a whole. So you lived through a lot of great Ed Sullivan moments.
Yeah, how about,
Tell me, before you go, Vince, I want.
And the Doors. How about that one?
The Doors was another one, but let me ask you something, Vince, because I want to get this out of you before you go. I know you have to go soon, but what kind of a man was Ed Sullivan? Sum him up a little bit for us.
He was a man with a temper, and yet he was a man with great passion. Civil rights. I mean, he would. This is a story. I'm on. Listen, you got to understand. I was a Sicilian kid from Brooklyn that was brought up by two Sicilian grandparents that spoke no English. So everything in my life that happened, you have no idea. I mean, it's like it's taken me to meeting people like Princess Grace and playing tennis with Prince Rainier and Monte Carlo and Sinatra and backstage at the Copa, backstage at the Latin Casino. But Sullivan had this passion for we were on a plane going to L.A. one day, and we're talking about the show and the rock and roll groups. And I said to him, "Mr. Sullivan, with the demographics and the ratings and everything," I said, we kind of put on Blossom Seeley and Sophie Tucker and Ted Lewis, all these old acts. And he said, Vince, the reason, it's only 2 or 3 minutes. It's not that it makes a rating points or anything. He said, but the reason I want these people on the show is because if they're on the show twice, all their medical and insurance is paid by the AFTRA.
Wow. Healthcare.
And that's the reason he did it. I mean, even when they were, the Nicholas brothers and people
He was
like
taking
that.
care of people he cared about in the in the showbiz
Exactly.
community.
Oh, yeah, I can tell you stories about this one guy, Johnny Dundee, who was a featherweight champion. That when he came to New York, he told me he was an Italian guy that took, he was like the Ray Robinson, Rocky Graziano or Sugar Ray, guy at that moment. And he literally took Sullivan around when he was a young sports writer, and introduced him to to Jack Dempsey and all these big Broadway names. And he was in fact Sullivan's best man. And years later, he lost all his money and his managers and everything. And Ed took care of him. I mean, like paid his rent, and he used to sit. He would come to the theater with his daughter, and it was a little slow, and took too many hits to the head, and he said, Vince, I want you to treat this guy, just as respectful and as a superstar. And I would literally greet the guy every Sunday with his daughter and put him in the seats and make him feel like he was important. And we talked to him, and then after the rehearsal,